So big difference between the WikiLeaks and the Wikipedia. WikiLeaks has huge potential in terms of making systems accountable in ways that we could only imagine before. A great example is after Julian Assange was arrested, a group at oh my goodness, okay, I'm gonna have to say a US university, because I think it was University of Illinois. University of Illinois set up an Illinois WikiLeaks, and they started to blog examples of public mismanagement of funds that public servants would leak to them. So they leaked it to the university students, the universities put it online and leaked it to the press in Illinois. So all of a sudden this huge tidal wave of what some would call accusations, but others would say transparency started to emerge in the blogosphere in the post-WikiLeaks era. The same thing with Wikipedia. I talked a little bit about the fact that most of the media is still structured in issues around power and social relations, gender relations. But the new Wikipedias of the world are being written by individuals and institutions in the South, in developing countries, as we once understood that. And their Wikipedia and our Wikipedia will conflict with one another. And it's be fascinating to see where we go in terms of linked information, examples, understandings shared across boundaries. And then a very recent thing, which is, I think, is a good indicator to me that we are now with this era of digital development, is that you're starting to see the donors doing something very different. It's not simply a matter of asking development to be more innovative and to overcome these wicked problems that have been entrenched in the world, but also to come out on a limb and invest, sometimes just one-off, like the Swedes have said, in social networking. So this year they have announced in 2011 they will put up $28 million for investment in social networking and social media for poverty reduction. So very interesting new initiatives coming on the line. And this is, I think, also telling us a little bit about where the donors might fund in the new frontiers. Some of the other aspects I think that students should be thinking ahead to is looking at issues that will help to innovate digital development in terms of waste and recycling of ICTs. We've heard a lot about this in terms of the dumping grounds of these technologies. Renewable power sources like the bicycle developed by Motorola to fuel a cell phone. Like the efforts to build new cloud-based sort of self-sufficiency in servers for development-related work and for social networking for pro-democracy and initiatives that would not otherwise be state-sanctioned. And also security in a box for NGOs. NGOs are living, because of digital development, in a very insecure age. They're very worried about who's hacking into their files. It's not just the Treasury Board of Canada where this is happening. So you have major issues with Oxfam and others right now talking about security for their systems and their data, and the fact that their emphasis on public information is now threatened. So you have toolkits like Security in a Box being downloaded by people to take them through how to have more secure information systems. And then finally, I think there's a call to all of us to start looking at the fact that the information, the knowledge that we are generating often is feeding into a proprietary system of knowledge management. And if we're working in digital development, how much of the information that we're actually generating as scholars, as practitioners, is actually going into the open public domain, and I have to use that public domain very carefully here, in terms of open data systems. Are we actually contributing to that and building that type of system? I deal with that a lot in my own work right now. I'm feeling very much weighted by these kinds of concerns. And I thought that I'd show you an example that is rather interesting in this respect. So let's look at one more.
Hi, I'm People. And I built OpenHeatMap as a free and open way to help people tell their stories through maps. So I've been delighted to see journalists like Charles Arthur of The Guardian using it to illustrate their stories. And I wanted to do a quick guide to just show you as a journalist how quick and easy it is to create your own maps using OpenHeatMap. So if you'll just give me 5 minutes, I promise I'll have you up and running and building your own maps ready to put in your own stories. So let's say that you've got a list of how much a big map costs in countries around the world, and you're trying to write a story around that. You can print it as a table, but some of your points, like how expensive Nordic countries are, don't leap out in this form. Isn't this map a better way of telling that story to your readers? To build this map, start with a spreadsheet containing your data. You can use Excel, but I prefer Google Spreadsheets, since that makes it easy to edit the data after you build the map. Enter your data into the spreadsheet as 2 columns, the country name followed by the cost of a big macro. Make sure the first row of the table contains the names of the columns as country and value. These names are how OpenHeatMap figures out what kind of map to draw, and in this case, country tells it to draw countries of the world and colour them according to the number in the value column. Now, publish your spreadsheet so OpenHeatMap can access it. Copy the URL, go to the OpenHeatMap website, choose Google Spreadsheet, paste the URL, and view your map. On this final screen, you can customize things like the title and colors, and once you're happy, save and view the result. Then click on Embed to grab the HTML to insert into your article so you can add the map. Great, you have your first OpenHeatMap. But now your editor wants you to highlight how purchasing power has changed over the last few months. All you need to do is insert the previous set of values as new rows in the spreadsheet, add a new column called time, put in the date for each row, save, and wait 2 minutes for the website to update. You now have an animated map that clearly shows those changes over time. It's not just countries OpenHeatMap understands. It understands almost any way of specifying a location you can think of. US counties, zip codes and congressional districts, latitude and longitude points, IP addresses, and even plain old street addresses. Suppose you need to highlight how poor families in Denver lack access to cheap, healthy food from supermarkets because of where they live, but are surrounded by unhealthy and expensive liquor stores. First, take the names and addresses of the local liquor stores and put them into 2 columns called name and address. Import the spreadsheet, edit the view, and you have a map that clearly shows how ubiquitous corner liquor stores are. That's only part of the story though. We also need to demonstrate the areas that are poorly served by grocery stores. So, go back to the spreadsheet, enter the names and addresses of the supermarkets, and then create a new column called tab. Enter liquor stores or supermarkets for each, and then return to the map. You can now switch back and forth between the 2 views and clearly see the poor neighbourhoods with liquor on every corner, but no decent grocery store for miles. I really hope these examples give you some ideas for your own stories. I'm really excited to see what you can generate with OpenHeatMap, so please contact me via pete@mailana.com if there's any way I can help.
So we appreciate that, Pete, but we're going to have to finish up here. So just to conclude, you know, I included that example. There's other mapping examples in class. We've looked at like the Map Kibera example of very densely populated, low-income housing areas of Nairobi, using mapping to map injustices, environmental injustices, pollution, social unrest or civil unrest, violence, corruption by police officers in the Kibera area. So mapping has other applications other than the one described here. But what's interesting is that we're now building within digital development this sense of linked and open access environments, and that I think is changing the way we study development, where all of a sudden we can begin to use our new information and communication technologies to actually see the places around the world that we're actually talking about, to hear the voices of people who live in those environments, to be able to also tell our own stories of our own lives to people who live in that development context, and also to question the assumptions that we have about how things work, whether these are the way things work politically, economically, agriculturally, you name it. And as well, we're seeing greater converged media that's taking multiple strands and knitting together that's more than the sum of its parts. I see that with participatory video in particular, and radio. We are now seeing forms of radio and video that are much stronger because of the way that we can edit in the cloud our programs. So rather than having to work on a story script or a film script in the field during maybe a time as a researcher, a couple months that I've got in the field to work on something and come back and do a lot of the editing here in Canada, we can actually use different shared spaces through the internet to be able to create, edit films, move films out, generate different media product with that activity. So this convergence is allowing us to tell those stories really very differently, the process of building the media, but also to get the messages of poverty, social inequality out much quicker, much into many different forms, many different languages. And then finally, the problem, the hangover, that party that we had in the 20th century with media, we're hungover now in the 21st century. We're dealing with an issue of old institutions and new media. We have to really be very critical of these old institutions, not just in the public sector, but in the private as well. In the public sector as well, where we have to ask ourselves, just because we don't see it, does it mean that we're not having somebody watch us? Is surveillance not an issue that we don't need to deal with in the development field? In fact, security of information, if anything, shows us with Kairos and the whole debate here in Canada, with the NGOs who are feeling extreme insecurity around their information and data management, that in fact, living in this digital development age is a whole new existence, and that these issues really are just beginning to unfold. So for those of you who are students in the room, this is the world that you're going to be in. For those of us who are researchers, scholars, teachers, practitioners, these are the things that we're going to have to learn about as well and to be engaged with. And I suspect that development with a digital face will be the next wave of discussions that we need to have. So I'd like to finish there, and thank you very much.